I know the sound of prayers that rattle like pebbles against a shut window. I know the fatigue of phrases polished by repetition, offered in sincerity, and the hush that answers as if the heavens turned the other way. I do not mock this. I have lived it. Long, long periods of practice, pleading one day and pleading the next, and only the echo of my own words returning to me. And sometimes it still tries to return, this old habit of talking to a sky god as if I were here and God were there. But I will not permit that old hypnotism to govern me, and I will not permit it to govern you. We are sincere. Our sincerity is not at fault. Direction is at fault. Now, do you remember the Master's instruction? When ye pray, use not vain repetitions, and enter into thy closet. Matthew 6-7:6. Where is that closet? The kingdom of God is within you, Luke 17:21. Therefore, I cannot continue begging into the air. I must come to the place where prayer is communion. I cannot go on sending words outward as if God were a distant ear. I must turn quietly inward to the living presence that is closer than breathing. I must maintain my God-given dominion over the direction of prayer. I, in this instant, assume my post as porter at the door of thought, and I say to the mind, be still, enter, not as a herald to the skies, but as a listener to the within. If prayer has felt like talking into the air, it is often because I have been addressing an absence. But there is no absence. I and the Father are one. John 10:30. Oneness does not answer from afar. Oneness is realized from within. Therefore, the frustration you feel is not a verdict against your love for God. It is a loving nudge correcting your compass. Turn from performance to presence, from speech to awareness. Let the lips introduce, but let the silence consummate. Words can open the door a crack. Impartation opens it wide. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46-10. Knowing follows stillness as dawn follows night. Not because God moves nearer, but because the noise moves out of the way. I will speak plainly. Petition presumes distance. Distance breeds fear. Fear breeds more words. And more words multiplied become what the Master called vain repetitions, not because the syllables are wicked, but because the direction is wrong. I will not indulge that any longer. I must reverse the flow. I do not send, I receive. I do not present a case. I consent to presence. I do not stir up the sea. I quiet the waters to see the bottom. In that quiet, something arrives of itself, not emotion, not imagination, not the swashbuckling eye that would strut and declare. It is a gentle witness, a soft influx that verifies itself. The Spirit itself beareth witness with our spirit, Romans 8:16. That is impartation. And let me set the promise at the outset so you do not wait in uncertainty. This is testable today. The moment after your last word is the doorway. Not when you master a chapter, not when you can quote a creed, but when the final syllable falls and the inner ear stays open. Before they call, I will answer. And while they are yet speaking, I will hear. Isaiah 65-24. Do you hear? Before the call, meaning the answer is not produced by the call. It is discovered when the call ceases to obscure the answer that is already present. So, I will not shame the one who has prayed 1,000 prayers. I embrace you. I have been you, but I correct the direction. From now on, I stand as the porter within, and I guide prayer home. I shift from projection to communion, from asking to awareness, from noise to knowing. And as we proceed, you will feel for yourself that when words end, prayer truly begins. And what begins is not more talking, it is impartation, the quiet eye revealing oneness. And in that oneness, the ceiling disappears because there never was a ceiling. Only a mind that had been speaking outward instead of listening inward. Deep calleth unto deep, Psalm 42-7. Let us answer that call by silence, and let the deep answer us by presence. Prayer ends when words end. I must say it that plainly, because the habit of the tongue is subtle, and it will continue wagging even after the heart has grown tired. Words, yes, let them open the door, but I cannot permit words to become the room itself. I will not permit the mind to believe it has accomplished prayer, because it has arranged syllables beautifully. Your Father knoweth what things ye have need of, before ye ask him. Matthew 6-8. Why then would I attempt to persuade, to inform, to change God? Petition tries to move God toward me. Realization consents to be moved into God. I choose realization. Now here is the next step, and do not miss it. First we ask, yes, at the beginning a word or two may set intention, Father, or simply I. But next we listen, and having listened, we rest. We rest until knowing arrives, without our strain, without our cleverness, without the mind producing its own answer and calling it divine. Not by might, nor by power, but by my spirit. Zechariah 4-6. That is the order. Ask, listen, rest until spirit bears witness within. If I am still pushing words, I am still steering. And as long as I steer, I cannot receive the wind. I lay down the oars. I let the current carry me. Do not confuse stillness with passivity. Stillness is governed awareness. I stand as the porter at the door of thought. I let the first word enter if it is the key that opens, and then I hold the door against further traffic. I do not allow pleading to rush back in, nor argument, nor the old prosecutor who would present his case to a distant judge. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength. Isaiah 30-15. Strength, not weakness. Dominion, not drift. Therefore, I assume conscious dominion over the steering mechanism itself, and I say to the will, be gentle, be still. Let the still small voice, 1 Kings 19:12, be heard. Now, yes, the human mind will say, but should I not tell God the problem? Beloved, do you remember, he maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. Psalm 23-2. The leading is not accomplished by my report. It is discovered in my lying down, in my being led. Words can point me toward the pasture. They cannot feed me. The feeding is impartation, life communicating its own sufficiency to itself. I then am not the beggar at a gate. I am the gate that opens and the life that passes through. I and the Father are one, John 10:30. Now, do you remember that I did not say my oneness with God, my conscious oneness with God, conscious known only when the noise has ceased? Here is your simple criterion. If I feel effort, I am still manufacturing prayer. If I hear myself arranging phrases to secure a result, I am still trying to change God. If there is pushing, I am steering. Impartation arrives when steering ceases. When the last syllable drops and I do not reach for another, when the breath softens of itself, when attention is gathered without strain, then quietly, secretly, Self-authenticating knowing comes. It may not come as a sentence. It may come as a lift, a soft certainty, an inner yes that requires no argument to sustain it. Thy Father which seeth in secret shall reward thee openly, Matthew 6:6. The reward is not a coin tossed from heaven. It is the unveiling of what is already present, made visible by stillness. I will not pretend that the tongue yields immediately. It may run on with holy phrases and good intentions, but I am not at its mercy. I, in this instant, assume dominion over prayer's direction. I let words introduce. I do not let them intrude. I let the personal will bow to the gentle eye, not the swashbuckling eye that claims power, but the quiet eye that is closer than breathing. I then am the listening of God to God, the one self hearing its own life. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10. Be still and know. Not be frantic and hope. Not be eloquent and persuade. Be still and know. So I mark the threshold for you. The last word falls, and I do not replace it. I remain present as presence. I do nothing. I permit. I do not summon. I receive. And in that receiving, prayer begins. Because now the Spirit may bear witness. In the sanctuary I have guarded. Words have opened the door. Silence is the room. Impartation is the meal set upon the table. Eat and be at peace. Now I must correct the subtlest deceit in this room, my prayer. The moment it becomes my prayer, it becomes my struggle, my performance, my attempt to pry open heaven with sincerity as my lever. I have done it. I have labored to be spiritual, tried to feel holy, striven to sound, surrendered. And all the while, the personal self stood center stage, reciting to God about God. I will not permit that play to continue. Of mine own self I can do nothing, John 5:30. Not a little, nothing. Therefore I in this instant take my seat as the witness of prayer, not the worker of it. I let the worker sit down. I say to the personal name and face and story, you are not the one who prays. Be still. Let the I that is closer than breathing pray himself. Now do you remember that I warned you against the swashbuckling I ams? I do not call you into a heroic pose, not an egotistical I never, not the I that boasts, struts, lays hands on heaven with a fist and claims dominion as a trophy. It has to be a gentle I, a humble I, the I that neither pushes nor pleads, but simply is. Not I, but Christ liveth in me. Galatians 2:20. Do you hear the secret? Not I, the person, but I, the life. Not the mask, the breath behind the mask. This I does not shout. It doesn't need to. It is the very being of you and of me, and of the bird and of the grass. One I, one self, one life. I and the Father are one. John 10:30. Not two, a pleader and a listener, but one, being silently aware of its own fullness. Therefore I police the boundary. Never do I permit myself to mix the personal name Joe, Mary, Thomas with the holy I. Joe cannot be spiritual. Joe cannot heal. Joe cannot reach God. Joel is the costume. I am the wearer. I am that I am. Exodus 3:14. Let me repeat. I am that I am. Not I, the person declaring greatness, but I, the universal announcing presence. This I is the listening of God to God. When I abide as that, prayer ceases to be speech and becomes communion. How do I make the exchange? I do not make it by effort. I make it by recognition. Not my will, but thine be done. Luke 22:42. I speak that not as resignation, but as identity. I rest the will of the person. I let its shoulders drop. I let its arguments fade. I let its need to prove itself go out like a candle in sunlight. And then, gently, I acknowledge, I am not the struggler. I am the stillness. I am not the voice producing words. I am the awareness in which words rise and fall. I am not here attempting to climb to God. I am the place where God is already resting as I. In him we live and move and have our being. Acts 17:28. Where would I go to find what I am inside of? I sometimes demonstrate this to myself with the hand. This hand can neither give nor withhold of itself. Something directs it. When the personal self becomes tense, grasping, proving, performing, the hand tightens, the voice hardens, the prayer becomes a push. But when I let the personal self sit down, when I remember that the I is the life of this hand, the life of this tongue, the prayer relaxes into a listening. The sea within hears, peace, be still. Mark 4:39. And the waves obey before a sentence is finished. Why? Because I have ceased to be two-person here, God there, and have consented to be one, the gentle I aware of itself. Now, yes, sometimes the habit returns. I can feel the personal self rushing back to perform. Oh, it wants so much to be seen spiritual, to demonstrate a healing, to show a result. I smile at it and I say, sit down. You are not responsible for God. You are not the cause of truth. You are not the arranger of outcomes. It is the Spirit that quickeneth. John 6:63. Therefore, I will not usurp the Spirit's work by dramatic speech. I will not seize the wheel. I assume dominion. Yes, but dominion over identity, not over God. I assume dominion over what enters my mind. I say again, gently, I, just I, not I the performer, I the presence. Here is the turn you must make in this very moment. Do not strive to reach, rest, and recognize. Not I, the person, am trying to reach God, but I rest in I, already at one. I am the gate and the going through. I am the listener and the answer known in quiet. When this gentle I takes precedence, words lose their urgency, breath softens of itself, and impartation begins of its own accord. The Spirit itself beareth witness with our spirit. Romans 8:16. Not because we have spoken brilliantly, but because we have ceased to speak as a separate someone and have allowed the one I to be himself in us. Then prayer is no longer my struggle. It is God enjoying God and I witnessing peace. Now I must speak a hard saying, and I say it in love. As long as I cradle holy words like treasures, I remain in the head looking at God instead of in being, knowing God. The very word God, 3 letters, can become a golden calf in thought. Spirit, 6 letters. Christ, 6. Father, 6. Love, 4. Life, 4. Truth, 5. Do you see? Each one is a sound, a shape, a concept. Useful for pointing, yes, but deadly if clutched. The letter killeth, but the Spirit giveth life. 2 Corinthians 3-6. The letter is the word held as a thing. The Spirit is the living eye that the word attempts to indicate. Therefore, I cannot permit words, even sacred words, to stand between me and what they signify. Now, do you remember that I cautioned you not to build speeches? Here is why. The moment I stack phrases, beautiful, true, devotional, I am juggling objects inside the skull. I am polishing the lens instead of looking through it. I am talking about water on the shore while the sea calls me in. Take no thought. Matthew 6:25, 31, 34. Not take holy thought in place of secular thought. Take no thought. The kingdom is not found in improved thinking, but in surrendered thinking. Thought is the scaffolding. Awareness is the house. Therefore, I practice a holy poverty with language. I let a word enter if it opens, and then I let it go. I do not carry it forward. I do not repeat it to persuade heaven. I offer Father, and as soon as the door cracks, I allow Father to dissolve into the silence it pointed to. I offer love, and love drops away so that loving presence may be felt without the echo of syllables. I offer Christ, and when the heart warms, I refuse to narrate the warmth. I rest inside it until it speaks for itself. One by one, I let the snowflakes melt on the tongue of awareness. Nothing is stockpiled. Nothing is arranged. I stand as porter at the door of thought, and I say to every beautiful pilgrim, you have delivered your message. Now be at peace. Enter no argument. Build no tower of Babel. And what remains when the couriers have gone? I cannot rid myself of the living sense of I. Every other term rises like smoke from the head, but I rises from the chest, from the very cave of the ribs, closer than breathing, nearer than hands and feet. Try it and see. Whisper God and watch the mind form a picture. Whisper spirit and feel the forehead get busy. Then cease. Place a soft hand at the breastbone and say simply, I. Do not say I am this or I am that. Strip even the predicate. Only I. Feel where it speaks from. Feel how it does not require an image to be itself. This is not the swashbuckling eye of ego. This is the gentle eye that neither boasts nor begs. I am that I am. Exodus 3:14. Not a concept, being speaking for itself. Now, yes, the habit will try to rush back with synonyms, with teachings, with phrases that once blessed you. Bless them and let them go. The blessing was never in the syllables. The blessing was in the moment the syllables released you into presence. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10. Be still. Strip the words no. Words can escort you to the threshold. They cannot cross. Knowledge begins when the last escort bows and leaves. I must maintain this discipline. I in this instant assume dominion over the impulse to decorate prayer. I refuse to pile garlands upon the altar when the fire asks for space and air. I breathe gently. On the exhale, I allow the last word to float out and fall, and in the falling, a quiet enlarges. In that quiet, the living I stands revealed, not as a thought I hold, but as the self that holds me. For in him we live and move and have our being. Acts 17:28. There is the irreducible remainder. When prayer is stripped of concepts, the living I remains, and that I is the door to impartation. At that door, words have finished their work. At that door, petition is impossible and communion is inevitable. There, without push or plea, the Spirit bears witness to itself, and I know not by argument, not by image, but by presence, being present. Now I move from revelation to regimen, because if I do not, the mind will take even this holy eye and decorate it with busyness. Stillness is not collapse. Stillness is government. I must maintain my God-given dominion. I stand as porter at the door of thought. I stand as tiler over my mind and my body. I, in this instant, assume dominion over inner traffic. I decide what enters. I decide what rests. I decide what is refused passage. Keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. Proverbs 4:23. This is not ego-seizing authority. This is the gentle I resuming its rightful office as guardian of the sanctuary. Think of prayer now as a holy room. The lamp is lit within. I am seated, quiet, the sense of I alive and unadorned. At once there is knocking. Self-criticism comes first, grim and pious, saying, "You are not worthy to sit here. I cannot permit this." Doubt strides up next. Will anything happen? What if nothing happens? I cannot permit this. Planning crowds in with maps for tomorrow, lists, replies, strategies. I cannot permit this. The replay of yesterday's conversation demands the stage so I can win it this time. I cannot permit this. The prosecutor arrives to indict another soul. The defense attorney follows with counter-arguments. I cannot permit this. Hurry, the old taskmaster taps his watch. Fear whispers outcomes. Comparison parades other people's blessings and calls mine small. I cannot permit this. Let not your heart be troubled, John 14:1. I, therefore, will not let it. Now, yes, I do not wrestle with these visitors. Wrestling grants them reality. I do not slam the door in violence. Violence agitates the room. I stand as porter. I look upon each suggestion as impersonal weather, as hypnotism, as a passing wind that seeks an open window. I simply do not open. I say softly, no entrance. I neither argue nor explain. I let it knock itself out against a closed gate, and I return to the quiet. I stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. Exodus 14:13. Do you hear? Stand still, not fight wildly. Stand still as governed awareness. The authority is not noise. The authority is presence. I watch also the more subtle intruders. Spiritual performance, preening in the mirror. See how holy I sit. A sermon composes itself for future use. Results hunting leans forward to check the clock. I cannot permit this. I will not allow the mind to turn the sanctuary into a stage or a marketplace. Nothing that defileth shall enter. Revelation 21:27. Defileth? What defiles is not a coarse word. What defiles is any thought that reintroduces separation, hurry, or fear into the Holy of Holies. I guard against that. Gently, firmly, I guard. And this dominion is not only over thought, but over flesh. I, in this instant, assume dominion over shoulders that would creep toward my ears. I let them drop. I assume dominion over the jaw that would clamp. I let it unhook. I assume dominion over hands that would fidget. I let them rest. I do not force breath. I allow breath to be breathed. The body is not the governor. It is the temple. I, the gentle I, am the keeper of the temple. Be sober. Be vigilant. 1 Peter 5-8. Sober, not dour. Vigilant, not tense. Awake, present, governed. Why this vigilance? Not to earn impartation, not to conjure God, but to make room for what is already at the door. When the traffic is refused, the room clarifies. When the room clarifies, a softness is felt of itself. The atmosphere changes. The dove will not land on a thrashing branch. It settles upon what is still. So too the impartation, the still small voice, 1 Kings 19:12, is discerned when I have ceased to host intruders. I do not produce it. I do not manage it. I prepare, I protect, I permit. Then, quietly, secretly, life communicates itself to itself, and I, standing as porter, taste peace. Now I give you the simple mechanic, because love must become practice, or it evaporates into inspiration and leaves you unchanged. Sit as you are, no ceremony required, only sincerity. I, in this instant, assume dominion over the tempo of prayer, not by forcing breath, not by managing the lungs as a machine, but by consenting to a gentleness that belongs to the eye itself. And the Lord God breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. Genesis 2-7. Do you hear? Breathed. Life entered his breath, and in that breath, life is known. Therefore, I will let breath carry me home, not as an exercise of the will, but as a surrender to what is already moving within me. Here is the method. Breathe gently. Breathe slowly. And always on the exhale, let the prayer be spoken. Not on the inhale, on the exhale. Why? Because the exhale is release, yielding, letting go. It carries the word out into silence. Choose the smallest phrase that does not turn into a speech. I, or peace, or be still. And even that word must dissolve before the breath is finished. I do not ride the whole exhale with syllables. I place a feather on the stream and let it float out of sight. Then the inhale comes by itself. Do not add anything to it. Receive it as gift. Again, on the exhale, a whisper, not a chant to produce a result, not a hammer on the door, a whisper that ends of itself. And after a few rounds, let even the whisper shorten until the exhale is almost wordless. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable. Psalm 19:14. Acceptable because they finish quickly and make room for the heart's meditation, silence. Now, yes, the mind will ask, how many breaths? How long? Do not permit it to convert surrender into arithmetic. The sign you are seeking is not a number. It is a shift. When the breathing naturally slows, almost imperceptibly, this is evidence that the surface mind is yielding. When the exhale lengthens without strain and the inhale arrives like a tide that requires no summoning, this is evidence. When there is a soft pause after the outbreath, not held, not forced, a quiet widening, this is evidence. When your own voice seems like a guest grown courteous in another's house, speaking less and less, this is evidence. He breathed on them and saith unto them, receive ye the Holy Ghost. John 20:22. Receive, do not manufacture. As the breath settles, reception begins. I will not permit you to turn this into a performance. There is no prize for the slowest breath. There is no ribbon for the longest pause. We are not manufacturing tranquility. We are ceasing interference so presence may be recognized. The ocean is already calm beneath the wind chop. I do not make a calm ocean. I let the wind quiet. How? I exhale with a small word that dissolves. I refuse entrance to stray traffic, and I let the body be breathed. In returning and rest shall ye be saved. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength. Isaiah 30:15. Returning on the exhale, rest on the pause. Quietness when the word ends early. Confidence when I witness That breath governs itself. If a thought comes, I neither fight nor follow. I do not engage it. I do not decorate it. I in this instant assume dominion, no entrance. And then back to the exhale, and it fades. Again, peace, and it is gone. Again, perhaps no word at all. Only the felt thigh in the chest, closer than breathing, nearer than hands and feet. After a few minutes, you will notice the success marker. The breath so unobtrusive that you almost wonder if you are breathing at all. You are. But the surface mind has unhooked. When your breathing slows down, almost imperceptibly, that is the evidence that you are succeeding. Do not rush past it. Do not reach for a sentence to describe it. Stay. And then, without announcement, impartation may arrive. Not a bolt, a lift, a self-authenticating quiet. The sense that I am not making prayer. Prayer is making me. I do nothing to prolong it. I do not touch the ark. I remain as porter, as listener, as the gentle eye, and I permit the Spirit to bear witness with my spirit. Be still and know. Psalm 46:10. Be still. On the exhale, know when the word is gone and only presence remains. Now I must guard this holy moment, because the human mind will try to decorate it, dramatize it, and then call the performance God. I cannot permit this. The moment after the last word is the sanctuary of recognition. What am I recognizing? Not a mood I whipped up, not a picture I painted on the inside of the forehead, not a new set of phrases to memorize and repeat. Impartation is not entertainment. Impartation is not emotion. Impartation is a quiet, self-authenticating shift of awareness, the sense that prayer is no longer being produced by me, but is being received in me. My sheep hear my voice. John 10:27. The sheep do not manufacture the shepherd's voice. They recognize it. How does this recognition appear? Often as an inward hush, a soft settling, as if the room grew larger without moving a wall. Sometimes there is warmth in the chest. Do not chase it. Simply notice that it arrived without your management. Sometimes it is spaciousness behind the eyes. Not a picture, but the absence of pressure to picture. It can be the sudden, effortless forgiveness of someone who has troubled you. No argument, no bargain, just release. It may come as clarity, without reasons. A simple yes that needs no defense. At times it is the naked phrase, it is done, but without drama, without triumph, more like a signature completed than a trumpet blown. The peace of God, which passeth all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds. Philippians 4:7. Passing understanding means it will not rely on your arguments to stay. Now, yes, you must have discernment, and I give you guards at the door. If it feels strained, if it asks you to tense, to push, to hold your breath and clutch a feeling lest it vanish, it is likely mental. If it arrives simple, gentle, and asks nothing of you but quiet acknowledgement, it is nearer to impartation. If it makes you urgent to tell someone, to report a result, to display a glow, take heed. The performer is back on stage. If it makes you kind without trying, still without boredom, grateful without listing reasons, that is the mark. The Spirit itself beareth witness with our spirit. Romans 8:16. Witness does not argue its case. It simply stands. And you know. There is another sign. Where there was hurry, there is a Sabbath. Where there was measuring, have I done enough? there is a simple sufficiency. Shoulders drop without command. The jaw unhooks. The breath continues by itself. Judgment loosens its grip. Comparison grows uninteresting. The inner prosecutor sits down without being refuted. By their fruits ye shall know them, Matthew 7:16. The fruit of impartation is ease and righteousness, rightness that doesn't strut, goodness that doesn't keep score, love that doesn't announce itself. Perfect love casteth out fear. 1 John 4:18. You may not feel a blaze of love. You may simply notice that fear has nowhere to land. Beware, too, the counterfeit of imagination dressed as revelation. If you constructed a scene, if you arranged divine speeches for God to say to you, if you rehearsed outcomes and called the rehearsal faith, you have touched the ark. Do not touch the ark. Return to the hush. Stand as porter. Let any manufactured glow pass out through the same door it entered. Then wait, unclenched, unhungry, for what does not need you to sustain it. When it is true, it sustains you. Sometimes impartation is only this: clean quiet, no words, no warmth, no message, only the felt absence of strain. Do not despise that. The dove does not always bring an olive leaf. Sometimes it simply rests. This is the rest wherewith ye may cause the weary to rest. And this is the refreshing. Isaiah 28:12. Rest is content without narrative. Refreshing is presence without embroidery. Do you see now why prayer ends when words end? Because the answer is not a sentence. The answer is presence, recognized. I then am not the speaker persuading a distant throne. I am the listening of God to God, and in that listening I receive what already is. Therefore, I maintain my dominion in this final moment. I refuse to add, I refuse to explain, I refuse to prolong. I remain still until the knowing stands up in me by itself. And when it does, I do not seize it. I let it keep me. It is finished, John 19:30. Finished not as ended, but as fulfilled, complete without my finishing touches. In that completeness, I rise quiet, and I carry no argument with me, only the peace that does not need a reason to be. Now I must speak plain. Begging fails because it is built on a lie. It presumes a God over there, a treasury beyond reach, a hand that withholds until I find the perfect sentence to pry it open. I cannot permit that theology to live in me. Your Father knoweth what things ye have need of before ye ask him. Matthew 6-8. If the knowing is already present, what am I begging? If the giver is nearer than breathing, whom am I shouting to? Petition that pleads from distance, rehearses distance, and distance cannot hear oneness. The more I push, the farther the horizon appears, not because God moves, but because I am training my own awareness to look away from what already is. Here is the non-dual correction, and I say it with the humility of one who has failed at begging and at last consented to be taught. I and my Father are one, John 10:30, not as bravado, as fact, not the person boasting, the gentle eye recognizing itself. Now, do you remember that I did not say my oneness with God, my conscious oneness with God? Oneness is eternal truth. Consciousness of it is prayer. When I am still, when the last word ends and the inward hush widens, I realize, not imagine, that the very life I am is the life I seek. The so-called answer is not sent across a gap. It stands up within me as being. All things that the Father hath are mine. John 16:15. Not mine as possession, mine as identity. And if all that the Father hath are mine, then they are thine, for there is only one I in the midst of us. Therefore I erase the marketplace from my altar. There is no my good and thy good. There is no private hoard, no spiritual ration book. All that I have is thine. Luke 15:31. My supply is your supply because there is only supply, not measured, not fractional flowing is the one, life in all. Do you see what this ends? The silent lawsuit in the heart, the competition for favor, the jealousy dressed up as zeal. I cannot be enriched at your expense because I am thyself. I cannot be healed while you are harmed because I am thyself. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. Psalm 24:1. Fullness does not divide itself into rival claims. It reveals itself where separation has been refused. Now, yes, someone will ask, but are we not told, ask, and it shall be given you? Matthew 7:7. I answer, ask aright, ye ask, and receive not, because ye ask amiss. James 4:3. To ask amiss is to ask as a separated one for a separate portion. To ask aright is to turn within, become still, and let the I announce its own sufficiency. This asking is recognition. This receiving is realization. It is not a bargain. It is a birth. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Matthew 6:33. Added where? Not imported from elsewhere. Added as awareness, as ease, as right placement emerging from the one that I am. I then assume dominion over every thought that would reintroduce bargaining. I stand as porter and refuse the beggar's posture. No entrance. I refuse the picture of a distant throne. No entrance. I refuse the arithmetic of merit. No entrance. I exhale a single I, and I let even that dissolve. And in the silence that remains, the quarrel ends. Conflict softens, because there is no other to steal my light. Comparison fades, because there is no second self to outshine. Relief arrives of itself. Fear loses its landing strip. Gratitude appears without reasons. Oneness is not a prize for eloquence. It is the atmosphere in which prayer is answered as realization. Therefore I do not beg. I behold. I do not bargain. I bear witness. I do not push. I permit. And in that permitting, the Father and I, in this gentle I, are known as one, and the answer is the knowing itself. Now I must remove the last disguise of separation, because if I do not, I will sit in holy stillness and then rise to accuse myself or another, and the atmosphere of impartation will be blown away by the storm of blame. Hear me. Error is not a person to fight. Error is suggestion, impersonal mesmerism, seeking a host. We wrestle not against flesh and blood. Ephesians 6:12. If I wrestle with flesh and blood, I have already been deceived by the mask. I cannot permit this. I must maintain my God-given dominion and refuse to make a self out of a suggestion. Now, yes, the mind will say, but I failed. I am the problem. They wronged me. They are the problem. And I answer, be sober, be accurate. You and they are instruments as which suggestion attempts to operate until it is seen and released. Let me repeat that error is impersonal. There is no such thing as an evil for which you or I are responsible, or for which another is responsible, as a self-originating power. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Luke 23:34. That is not indulgence. That is diagnosis. Hypnotism misleads. Suggestion prompts. Personalizing it anchors it. Depersonalizing it dissolves its hold. Bring it to prayer frustration itself. My prayers don't work. Whose voice is that? Trace it. It does not arise from the chest where I speaks. It chatters in the head, counts failures, rehearses efforts, demands more words, more pleading. That voice is mesmerism trying to keep me laboring on the treadmill, trying to keep me measuring myself and condemning myself. I cannot permit this. There is therefore now no condemnation to them which are in Christ Jesus, Romans 8:1. In the gentle eye, condemnation has no jurisdiction. In the gentle eye, I am not the failure. I am the witness. I do not argue with the accuser. I do not publish its report. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. James 4:7. Resist by refusing to personalize the whisper. Here is the release move, simple, repeatable, powerful, because it refuses to feed the hypnotism. First, recognize the suggestion as suggestion. Name it, impersonal. Second, refuse to wrestle, no counter-arguments, no self-defense, no prosecuting brief. Wrestling dignifies wind. Third, let it drop. How? I, in this instant, assume dominion. On the exhale, I place a feather I, and the thought slides off into the quiet. I return to breath and stillness. I stand as porter at the door of thought. No entrance. Again, I, and it dissolves. Again, perhaps nothing, only the hush, casting down imaginations, and every high thing that exalteth itself against the knowledge of God. 2 Corinthians 10:5. Imaginations fall when I stop supplying them with personal identity. Apply this to the one who has troubled you. The picture rises, their face, their deed, your pain, the courtroom in your chest. I cannot permit this. That courtroom is mesmerism. The person across the bar is not the problem. Suggestion is the problem. I do not declare them guilty. I do not declare me guilty. I declare suggestion impersonal, without father, without root, without law. I let it drop. Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. Romans 12:21. The good is not my rightness against their wrongness. The good is oneness recognized, the atmosphere in which retaliation has no oxygen. I choose silence over verdict. I choose breath over argument. I choose the gentle eye over the swashbuckler. And in that choice, space opens. What happens when blame drops? The air clears. The dove that would not land on a thrashing branch descends. The noise that insisted on narrative is gone. Sometimes only a clean quiet remains. Sometimes an understanding without words stands up in me what to do, what to say, or to say nothing at all. My sheep hear my voice, John 10:27. The voice does not shout over courtroom clamor. It speaks in the stillness that follows depersonalization. Impartation then is natural, not achieved, because I have ceased imputing reality to the suggestion and have returned to the I that is reality itself. Therefore, I will keep this healing lens close. I will not fight people. I will release suggestion. I will not accuse myself. I will refuse mesmerism. I will name it impersonal. I will let it drop. I will return to breath, and I will stand as porter in holy quiet. Peace. Be still. Mark 4:39. Peace is not a mood I manufacture. Peace is the climate of oneness recognized. And in that climate, answers do not arrive as victories over an enemy. They appear as realization in the one I that we are. Now let us make a living demonstration, not with imagination, but with attention governed by the gentle I. Sit as you are. I, in this instant, assume dominion, not as a swashbuckler, not as a performer, gentle, steady, present. I rest. I listen. I consent. I do not drive this body with fear. I let the eye govern. Know ye not that your body is the temple of the Holy Ghost? 1 Corinthians 6:19. Therefore I will walk through the temple and acknowledge its rooms, not to fix, not to decorate, but to recognize presence already there. Begin at the crown of the head. Do not hunt for a feeling. Simply let awareness touch the scalp as you would lay a hand upon a child's brow, blessing, not managing. I stand as porter, even here. No entrance to self-criticism about thoughts. No entrance to performance about stillness. Only I am here. Be still and know. Psalm 46:10. Move to the forehead and the eyes. Let the gaze soften behind the lids. I rest. I listen. I consent. I do not command pictures. I release pressure. The jaw notice if it would grip. I do not force it to relax. I allow it to remember. It is not the governor. I am. Now the throat, the doorway of speech and swallow. I neither push nor swallow on cue. I simply acknowledge presence. Set a watch, O Lord, before my mouth. Psalm 141:3. I, in this instant, assume dominion over speech by becoming still before speech, shoulders the old centuries of worry. I do not pry them down. I permit them to remember gravity is kind. I rest. I listen. I consent. The heart now place awareness there as if you were listening for a friend in the next room. Not to count beats, not to tinker, only to abide. The peace of God, which passeth all understanding, shall keep your hearts. Philippians 4:7. I do not manufacture peace. I host it. The lungs closer than breathing. Let awareness be breathed. On the exhale, a feather of I, and even that dissolves. I do not hold the inhale. I receive it. I do not command rhythm. I witness it governed. I rest. I listen. I consent. I do not drive this body with fear. I let the I govern, travel to the center of the chest, and then down to the solar plexus. The old staging ground of hurry. I am not here to negotiate with butterflies. I am here to acknowledge that movement lives in a larger stillness. The abdomen, softly notice. No bracing, no fixing. Recognition, not manipulation. In him we live and move and have our being. Acts 17:28. In this I, the organs move rightly. In this I, digestion takes place without my anxiety's assistance. I therefore withdraw that false management and become witness, lower back and hips, the hinges of bearing burdens. I neither read biography into sensation nor prophesy outcomes. I am the porter. No entrance to fear, no entrance to analysis, presence only, down the thighs, knees, calves, ankles, and feet, the pillars of going and coming. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. Psalm 23:2. I consent to ease even while sitting. I consent to be carried by the I that is already carrying me. Now, while you remain quietly aware of the body as a whole, I give you the hand as demonstration. Look at it or feel it resting. This hand cannot lift itself. This hand cannot clench itself. This hand cannot bless or strike of its own will. Something must direct this hand. Something must speak within before fingers move. The body does not rule. It reveals. The I governs mind and flesh. When I am still, when the beggar's posture is refused and the porter stands watch, the hand becomes servant of the one, not of fear, not of habit, not of suggestion. I and my Father are one. John 10:30. I then am the life of this body, the wisdom of its members, the rhythm of its breath. Now, return once more to the whole head to foot, one temple, one atmosphere. You are not hunting for signs. You are witnessing order. You are not driving outcomes. You are consenting to government. I rest. I listen. I consent. I do not drive this body with fear. I let the I govern. And as this awareness travels within, notice how stillness ceases to be an idea and becomes weight-bearing, felt, incarnate. The jaw is quiet without command. The shoulders remember their lowered position without argument. The breath continues by itself. By their fruits ye shall know them. Matthew 7:16. The fruit here is ease under authority, the gentle authority of the universal I. Do not get I and your name mixed up. Your name cannot govern anything. I alone governs. And because I am thyself, this governance is not domination. It is communion. Therefore, I will repeat this inward travel, not to chase experiences, but to live in recognition. The hand will not act by itself. The tongue will not speak by itself. The feet will not run by themselves. The eye will direct, and in that direction, prayer becomes flesh, quiet, obedient, whole. Now we test it today, not tomorrow when you have more time and better conditions. Today, I in this instant assume dominion over the manner of my prayer, and I refuse the old impulse to add sentences upon sentences as if God were hard of hearing. Prove me now herewith, saith the Lord of hosts. Malachi 3:10. This is that proving, not to make God act, but to reveal that the action is already in the midst of thee when words end. Here is the experiment. Sit as you are. No posture to win a prize. No sanctified tone. Speak one honest sentence, naming the need one line only, and then stop. It must be plain and unadorned. Father, I am afraid about this appointment. Or, I do not know how to pay this bill. Or, there is pain here. Or, show me the next right step. Then no more words. That is your last word. If you must, place a quiet timer for 90 seconds so the human mind does not peek at the clock. But after you set it, forget it. Your work is not timing. Your work is stillness. Now the 90 seconds on the exhale, a feather of I, and even that dissolves. Inhale arrives by itself. Do not add anything to it. Exhale. Perhaps no word now, only the felt I in the chest, nearer than hands and feet. I stand as porter at the door of thought. No entrance to analysis. No entrance to rehearsed outcomes. No entrance to pictures of disaster or triumph. The need you named, do not juggle it. Do not push it away. Let it rest as a small stone in the open palm of silence. The hand does not clench. Be still and know. Psalm 46:10. Still on the exhale. Know when you cease manufacturing prayer. Mind will try to bargain. I cannot permit this. Mind will try to narrate. I cannot permit this. Mind will offer a verse as a charm instead of a gateway. I will not permit this either. Only the gentle I remains, breathing you. In returning and rest shall ye be saved. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength. Isaiah 30:15. Return on the exhale. Rest when the sentence is over. Quietness when the pictures are refused entry. Confidence when breath governs itself. What are you to look for in these brief 90 seconds? not fireworks, not a voice with a mailing address. Look for the impartation sign, however slight, the shoulder dropping without command, the breath lengthening without effort, the panic losing its grip and giving way to capacity, as if a clean room opened in you that can hold this matter without bracing. Perhaps a simple next step appears. Call this person, cancel that appointment, send that note, or perhaps the clear sense to wait and do nothing. Thine ears shall hear a word behind thee, saying, this is the way, walk ye in it. Isaiah 30-21. Sometimes the word is a direction. Sometimes it is only peace. Sometimes there is a companionship that was not there a minute ago, a sense that you are not thinking alone. Lo, I am with you always. Matthew 28-20. Presence, not performance. If it is faint at first, be honest and untroubled. Do not turn a seed into a verdict against yourself. If ye have faith as a grain of mustard seed. Matthew 17:20. A grain proves the principle of tree. A quiet breath proves the principle of impartation. The sign may be as small as the inner prosecutor going silent for a breath whip, or as gentle as the pressure to hurry losing one notch. That is enough to know you are on the road. By their fruits ye shall know them. Matthew 7:16. The fruit here is ease under authority, the gentle authority of the universal I. If the mind wins and rushes back with arguments, I will not pretend that this never happens. It does. It may get the best of you for a moment, but not for too long. Snap out of it, not with violence, but with recognition. Name it mesmerism, impersonal suggestion. Let it drop. Return to the exhale with a feather of I, and let even that dissolve. Stand as porter again and again until 90 seconds complete themselves. Repentance is not punishment. It is returning awareness to where oneness is heard. At the bell, do not leap up to announce a result. Do not touch the ark. Simply notice what shifted. Panic to capacity? Confusion to a single modest step, isolation to being accompanied, or only clean quiet. Any of these is impartation in degree. Guard it with silence. Let it keep you. Then rise and take the next simple action that is obvious, or take none, if none is. My sheep hear my voice. John 10:27. The sheep do not run before the shepherd. They move in the same breath. Do this experiment with any need, small or large, 3 times today. 1 sentence, then 90 seconds of holy quiet. You will learn in your own experience that an after-prayer silence is not a delay, it is the door. You will see that what has been missing was not more language, not stronger pleading, but the room in which the answer appears as realization. And with each proving, the gentle I takes precedence. Words end sooner, and knowing stands up in you by itself. It is God which worketh in you, both to will and to do. Philippians 2:13. In this I rest, I listen, I consent, I let the I govern. Now I will be plain with you and with myself. This is not mastered in a day, nor in a week, nor in a season. I had my long periods of practice, and sometimes it still tries to have its way with me. The mind rushes back. The old fear pulls at the gut. The tongue wants to run ahead and build the tower of words. I will not pretend otherwise, but not for too long. I snap out of it, not with force, not with swagger, not with a swashbuckling I am, but with a gentle eye, with sobriety, with the simple protocol, that returns me to government. Be sober, be vigilant. 1 Peter 5:8. Vigilance here is gentle, not tense, accurate, not anxious. This is the recovery, and I lay it on the altar for you to use when the storm returns. First, notice. Do not argue with the storm. Notice it. Naming is power. I call it mesmerism. I call it suggestion. I call it impersonal wind. Second, refuse the spiral. The spiral is the mind telling its story about mind. I failed. I'm no good at this. I'll never learn. I cannot permit this. There is therefore now no condemnation to them which are in Christ Jesus. Romans 8:1. No condemnation includes you condemning you. Third, return to one gentle breath. On the exhale, a feather of I, and even that dissolves. Inhale arrives by itself. Exhale. Porter at the door. No entrance to analysis. No entrance to performance. No entrance to a glow I am trying to impress myself with. Fourth, return to stillness again and again without keeping a scorecard. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength. Isaiah 30:15. Quietness, not report. Confidence, not display. Now, yes, the temptation is to make a big declaration to drown the anxiety. I cannot permit that either. Do not shout spiritual slogans at yourself. Do not attempt a miracle of bravado. Put up again thy sword. Matthew 26:52. The gentle eye does not fight noise with noise. It assumes dominion by silence. It stands as porter and lets the riot pass without admission. If the breath feels trapped, place the palm lightly on the chest, not to manage, but to remember where I arises, closer than breathing. On the next exhale, allow the word to be a whisper, then an intention, then not even that, only being. My grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. 2 Corinthians 12:9. Grace works best when I stop performing strength. Let me repeat, the practice is not never drifting. The practice is returning quietly, gently, until impartation becomes natural. A just man falleth 7 times and riseth up again. Proverbs 24:16. Rising is the practice. Returning is the victory. If you drift 10 times today and return 10 times, you have not failed 10 times. You have trained 10 times. Tennyson repeated his own name until the mind unhooked. I train with I until the earth of habit yields to the seed of awareness. Long, long periods of practice without drama, without self-accusation. This is how stillness becomes your native climate instead of a weather break. Beware the other trap, measuring and announcing your progress. Do not turn your prayer into a stage. Do not review your silence like a critic. Do not show your glow to yourself in an inner mirror. That is the performer, and the performer cannot hear. Let not thy left hand know what thy right hand doeth. Matthew 6:3. Let the breath slow of itself. Let the shoulders drop without applause. Let the next right step appear without a parade. Guard the hush. Keep the secret oil of quiet upon the altar within. And when, after all this, the mind wins for a spell, if you thunder, if you fear, if you rehearse the old speech, I will not let you sink under shame, snap out of it, not harshly, but immediately. Name it mesmerism. Refuse the spiral. Exhale a feather of I and return. Stand as porter, no entrance. Again return, and again, and again. Standing is returning. With such training, impartation ceases to be a rare event and becomes the atmosphere of your hours. Pray without ceasing, 1 Thessalonians 5:17, is not incessant speech. It is uninterrupted recognition. I rest, I listen, I consent, I let the I govern. And in that governance, even your recoveries become sacraments. For every return is an amen to oneness. Now, let me say the plain thing that all of this has been leading to. I do not pray to get God in stillness. I discover I have never been absent from the one that is my life. From many words that hit the ceiling, I have come to one exhale that opens the door. From speech, I have come to silence. From managing, I have come to dominion, gentle, unforced, God-given. From concepts about a three-letter God, I have come to the living sense of I, nearer than breathing. From the restless person, I have come to the universal I. And in that I, impartation is not fetched. It appears of itself as knowing. The kingdom of God is within you, Luke 17:21. Within, not because a person has hoarded a treasure there, but because I am that I am, Exodus 3:14, has never departed. Now, do you remember that I did not say my oneness with God? My conscious oneness with God. Oneness is the fact. Prayer is the awakening to the fact. And when I awaken, I see the correction that ends our quarrels. There is not my life and thy life at odds. There is not my supply and thy supply to be negotiated. One God and Father of all, who is above all and through all and in you all. Ephesians 4-6. Therefore I cannot be enriched at your expense, nor healed while you are harmed, nor safe while you are threatened, for I am thyself. All things that the Father hath are mine, John 16:15. Not mine as a private locker, but mine as identity, therefore thine also. For there is only one I in the midst of us. My interests are your interests, my supply is your supply. The presence is not rationed. The earth is the Lord's, and fullness does not shrink when recognized. It reveals itself. I then assume conscious dominion over this hour's ending. I will not convert it into performance or into a review. I will not seize the hush to make a monument. I, the porter at the door of thought, quietly keep watch. No entrance to measuring. No entrance to boasting or despair, only recognition. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46-10. Be still, this is the instruction. Know, this is the impartation. And the knowing is simple. I have never been separate. I and the Father are one. The life I am is the life by which I live. I am crucified with Christ. Nevertheless I live. Yet not I, but Christ liveth in me, Galatians 2:20. Not the performer, not the swashbuckler, not the anxious planner. Christ liveth in me, as me. And in that living, the hand acts, the mind quiets, the body is governed, and love ceases to be a project and becomes the atmosphere. After this, do one thing and do it as sacrament. Sit for 2 minutes with no words. Not even a holy word as a charm. Sit as the porter on the exhale, if any sound, a feather of eye, and let even that dissolve. Let the shoulders drop of themselves. Let the breath find its own pace. Do not hunt for signs. Notice the fruit ease under authority. A clean room in which the next right step appears or does not yet appear. And either way, companionship. Lo, I am with you always. Matthew 28-20. This 2 minutes is not an addendum. It is the seal. Let the impartation complete itself without your assistance. I speak blessing now, not from a height to a low place, but as thine own self speaking to itself in truth. Renewal because the sap has never ceased to rise. Regeneration, because what is eternal is forever bearing newness into form. Resurrection, because whatever in you seemed buried under noise and effort now stands up quietly when the stone of words is rolled away. I am the resurrection and the life. John 11:25. I do not announce it as a feat. I consent to it as fact. I rest. I listen. I consent. I let the I govern. So we close. Without closing. No curtain. Only continuance. Prayer does not end. Speech ends. Words do not carry you farther. Silence carries you home. In the next breath, you prove this for yourself. In the next exhale, you return to where you have never not been. In him we live and move and have our being. Acts 17:28. And in that being, I and thou are one, and the knowing is the answer. Peace keep you. Grace keep you. The gentle I keep you in quiet, in confidence, in the unbroken presence that has never been absent.